Liam O'Connell had always been an enigma at St. Jude's Medical Center, and that's exactly how he wanted it. For 9 years, he'd buffed the same floors, emptied the same recycling bins, and sterilized the same blood-stained operating instruments with hands that moved with surprising grace nobody else seemed to notice. But when armed operatives stormed through the emergency room doors on that freezing Wednesday night, the quiet cleaner would reveal skills that could only belong to someone trained to eliminate threats and provide critical care in equal measure. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of St. Jude's Medical Center cast their familiar harsh glow across the polished linoleum floors as Liam O'Connell pushed his cleaning cart down the corridor. It was 11:53 p.m., a deep into the night shift that had become his sanctuary for nearly a decade. The hospital at this hour was a different world, quieter, more intimate, where the drama of day shift medicine gave way to the steady rhythm of overnight healing. Liam moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had walked these halls thousands of times, but his movements held something else, a controlled grace that spoke of training far beyond custodial work. At 37, he was lean and compact, his sandy brown hair always pulled back in a simple knot beneath a faded beanie that bore the hospital's logo. His piercing blue eyes held a watchfulness that seemed out of place for someone whose job was to clean up after others, constantly scanning, assessing, cataloging details that most people would miss. Tonight, like every night, he wore the same uniform, charcoal gray scrubs, comfortable boots that made no sound on the polished floors, and a utility belt loaded with cleaning supplies. But those who looked closely might notice that his hands moved with the precision of someone who had once worked with much more delicate instruments than mops and disinfectant bottles. The emergency department was Liam's final stop each night, and he approached it with the same methodical care he brought to every task. Through the glass doors, he could see Dr. Anya Sharma finishing up with a patient, her movements quick and confident as she applied a cast to a fractured arm. Liam had watched Dr. Sharma work hundreds of times, always from a distance, always invisible. The doctor was brilliant, one of the best orthopedic surgeons Liam had ever observed, and he had observed many. As Liam began his cleaning routine, he noticed details that the medical staff had long stopped seeing. The way the new security officer, Marcus, favored his right knee, probably an old sports injury that would slow him down in a crisis. The fact that the backup communication system had been emitting a slight hum for 4 days, indicating a loose connection that would fail within the week. The subtle tells that distinguished real patients from potential threats: posture, eye movement, the way hands rested or fidgeted. These observations came automatically, involuntarily, like breathing. They were the product of training so intensive and specialized that it had become hardwired into his nervous system. Training that officially had never existed for operations that had never happened in service of a country that had disavowed him when things went wrong. Liam O'Connell was not his real name. It was a carefully constructed identity complete with employment history, references, and a backstory that could withstand casual investigation. The man who had earned the call sign Sentinel during covert operations in North Africa had died in a drone strike 9 years ago, according to official records. But that man's skills, his ability to perform field surgery under duress, to read tactical situations in seconds, to move through hostile territory like a ghost. Those skills lived on in the quiet cleaner who disinfected trauma rooms and listened to the stories whispered in hospital corridors. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had spent years eliminating threats in the most dangerous places on Earth, only to find himself contributing to saving lives again in the sterile safety of a Seattle hospital. But here, his healing came through different means, ensuring that operating rooms were spotless, that equipment was properly sterilized, that the environment itself contributed to patient survival. It was honest, yes, Work is just seen an invisible work, and it had given him something he'd never had in his previous life: peace. The patients who passed through St. Jude's emergency department came from every walk of life. Street gang members with stab wounds lay next to suburban fathers with power tool accidents. Homeless veterans battled pneumonia while executives recovered from heart attacks. Liam had cleaned fluids from the floors where all of them had bled, and he had learned to see past the circumstances that brought them here to the fundamental humanity they shared. Sometimes, late at night when the department was quiet, he would catch himself studying medical procedures with an intensity that went beyond casual interest. His hands would move unconsciously, mimicking the motions he observed, muscle memory surfacing from operations where he had worked to stabilize comrades under enemy fire. Dr. Sharma had noticed once, commenting that Liam seemed to have an unusual understanding of medical procedures for a janitor. Liam had deflected with a smile and a story about growing up in a family of paramedics. The truth was more complicated. Liam had been a special operations field medic before he had been anything else, trained to provide advanced trauma care in conditions that would challenge seasoned emergency room doctors. He could perform field surgery with a multi-tool and duct tape, set broken bones with improvised splints, and keep someone alive with whatever materials were at hand. These skills had made him invaluable to his unit, earning him the call sign Sentinel and a reputation for bringing everyone home alive. But that life had ended abruptly when Operation Shadowfall went sideways. His team had been compromised, sold out to enemy forces by someone in their own command structure. Good soldiers had died because of that betrayal, and Liam had been forced to disappear to avoid joining them. The official story was that Master Sergeant David Thorne had died in a drone strike during a reconnaissance mission. The unofficial truth was that he had been marked for elimination by the same forces that had destroyed his team. Now, as he cleaned the emergency department that had become his world, Liam allowed himself to believe that the past had finally stayed buried. 9 years was a long time. People forgot. Files got archived. The conflicts that had shaped him had given way to new skirmishes, new secrets, new betrayals. He had built a life here, not glamorous, not exciting, but his. He finished cleaning the trauma bays and moved toward the supply closet to restock his cart. The night was quiet, peaceful in the way that hospital nights could be when no major emergencies were unfolding. Dr. Sharma was finishing her paperwork. The nurses were checking on patients, and the security guard was making his rounds. Everything was normal, routine, safe. Liam had no way of knowing that 3 blocks away, a dark van was pulling into the hospital parking lot. He couldn't see the men inside, checking their suppressed weapons, reviewing building schematics, or confirming the identity of their primary target. He was unaware that the peaceful life he had built was about to collide with the violent past he had tried so hard to leave behind. As he loaded fresh towels into his cart, Liam felt a familiar unease, the same sensation that had kept him alive through dozens of missions in hostile territory. It was subtle, barely perceptible, but unmistakable. The feeling of being watched, of danger approaching like a storm front on a clear horizon. He paused, listening to the familiar sounds of the hospital at night. Everything seemed normal, but his instincts, honed by years of training and survival, told him otherwise. Something was wrong, something was coming. And in that moment, Liam O'Connell, the invisible cleaner, began the transformation back into Sentinel, the soldier who had never learned how to leave anyone behind. The unease followed Liam through the remainder of his shift like a shadow he couldn't shake. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts. They had kept him alive in places where trusting the wrong person or missing the wrong signal meant death. But 9 years of peaceful routine had dulled the sharp edge of constant vigilance, and he found himself questioning whether his paranoia was justified or simply the ghost of a life he'd tried to forget. At 3:23 a.m., that question was answered in the most dramatic way possible. Liam was restocking medical supplies in Trauma Bay 4 when he heard Dr. Sharma's sharp intake of breath from the neighboring bay. Through the thin partition, he could hear the doctor speaking in rapid, urgent Hindi to a patient who had just been brought in by ambulance. The words were familiar to Liam, not just the language, but the specific medical terminology that Dr. Sharma was using to describe what appeared to be a gunshot wound. Entry wound consistent with high-velocity rifle round, Dr. Sharma was saying to the attending nurse. Trajectory suggests the shooter was positioned at elevation, probably a distant building. This wasn't random street violence. Liam's hands stilled on the bandage packages he was organizing. High-velocity rifle round, elevated position. The clinical description triggered memories he had worked hard to suppress. Memories of treating similar wounds in urban combat zones, of tracking sniper positions, of the way professional killers worked. He moved closer to the partition, his cleaning forgotten. Through the gap in the curtain, he could see the patient, a man in his late 30s, Middle Eastern, wearing clothes that suggested he was neither wealthy nor poor. But it was his hands that caught Liam's attention, scarred, calloused in specific ways that spoke of weapons training and hard living. His tattoos were partially visible beneath the blood-soaked clothing, and Liam recognized military unit insignia mixed with symbols he had learned to read during his time in special operations. This wasn't a random victim. This was a soldier or former soldier, and someone had tried very hard to kill him. "Doctor," the patient wheezed, grabbing Dr. Sharma's wrist with surprising strength. "They're coming tonight. The hospital, not safe." Dr. Sharma tried to calm him, assuming he was delirious from blood loss and trauma, but Liam heard something in his voice that the doctor missed. The clarity of someone delivering a warning, not the rambling of someone in shock. "Sir, you need to stay calm," Dr. Sharma said, preparing a sedative. "You're safe now. You're in the hospital." "No," the man insisted, his voice growing stronger despite his injuries. "They followed me here. They know I came here. They'll come for her." "For who?" Dr. Sharma asked. But the man was losing consciousness, the combination of blood loss and medication taking hold. Liam's blood went cold. The timing was too convenient, too precise. A former soldier showing up at his hospital with a sniper wound, talking about people coming for her. In his previous life, he would have called it actionable intelligence. In his current life, he called it a death sentence, arriving right on schedule. He slipped back into the supply closet and activated the emergency protocols he had hoped never to use. Hidden behind a false panel in the cleaning cart was a secure satellite phone, ancient by current standards, but still functional. He powered it up and sent a single coded message to a number he had memorized but never called. Sentinel-2. Blackbird compromised. Immediate extraction required. The response came back within 30 seconds. Ghost to Sentinel. Negative on extraction. Too hot. Hunker down and wait for all clear. Liam stared at the phone's small screen, processing the implications. If Ghost, Maya Singh, his former teammate and the only person who knew he was alive, was telling him that extraction was impossible, then whatever was coming was bigger than a simple assassination attempt. This was a full-scale operation. He deleted the messages and returned the phone to its hiding place, his mind already shifting into tactical mode. The hospital had approximately 300 people inside at this hour: patients, staff, security, and visitors. The building had multiple entry points, but the emergency department was the most vulnerable. If someone wanted to infiltrate St. Jude's while maintaining plausible cover, they would come through the ED. Liam began moving through the department with new purpose, ostensibly continuing his cleaning routine, but actually conducting a security assessment. The emergency department had two main entrances, the public entrance through the lobby and the ambulance bay where emergency vehicles delivered patients. Both were monitored by security cameras and had card access controls, but neither would stop a determined professional. The current security staff consisted of Bob Marcus, the overweight guard he had observed earlier, and Sarah Jenkins, a capable but small woman whose primary experience was dealing with unruly visitors rather than armed intruders. The hospital's main security office was on the ground floor, but the emergency department relied on local presence rather than central monitoring. As he worked, Liam found himself cataloging potential weapons and defensive positions with the automatic efficiency of his old training. Medical scissors could serve as improvised knives. Oxygen tanks could be weaponized. The heavy crash carts could provide mobile cover. The pharmaceutical lockup contained sedatives that could incapacitate an attacker if properly administered. But more than weapons, he was thinking about the people he would need to protect. Dr. Sharma was brilliant and decisive, but she had no tactical training. The nurses were competent medical professionals, but they weren't prepared for violence. The patients in the emergency department included an elderly woman with stroke symptoms, a teenage boy with a broken leg, and 3 other individuals in various stages of treatment. At 4:28 a.m., Liam's preparations were interrupted by the arrival of another ambulance. He watched through the windows as paramedics unloaded a patient who appeared to be unconscious. But something about the scene felt wrong. The paramedics' movements were too coordinated, too military, and the patient on the stretcher was positioned in a way that suggested he was ready to move quickly if necessary. Liam grabbed his radio and switched to the hospital's internal frequency. "Security to emergency. This is maintenance. I need someone to verify the ambulance that just arrived. License plate and crew identification." Bob Marcus's voice crackled back through the radio. "Maintenance, this is security. Why are you requesting verification on a medical transport?" "Just humor me," Liam replied, knowing he couldn't explain his suspicions without revealing his background. A few minutes later, Marcus's voice returned, but now it carried a note of concern. "Maintenance, we have a problem. That ambulance isn't in our system. The license plate comes back to a vehicle that was reported stolen 4 hours ago." Liam's suspicions crystallized into certainty. The wounded soldier hadn't been followed to the hospital. He had been chased here, probably as part of a larger plan to flush out whoever he was trying to warn. And now the hunters had arrived, disguised as the very people the hospital was designed to trust. He moved quickly to the nurse's station and caught Dr. Sharma's attention. "Doctor, I need you to listen carefully and not ask questions. That ambulance crew that just arrived, they're not real paramedics. You need to initiate a lockdown immediately." Dr. Sharma looked at him with confusion and growing alarm. "Liam, what are you talking about? How would you know?" "Because I've seen this before," Liam said quietly. "Please trust me. Lock down the department and get everyone away from the main entrances." Before Dr. Sharma could respond, the lights in the emergency department suddenly cut out, plunging the area into darkness, except for the pale glow of emergency lighting. In that moment, Liam heard the sound that confirmed his worst fears, the distinctive click of weapons being readied, echoing from multiple positions around the department. The hunt had begun. The emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow that transformed the familiar hospital corridors into something from a nightmare. Liam's training kicked in immediately, his body moving with muscle memory that had been dormant for 9 years but never forgotten. He dropped to a crouch behind the nurse's station, pulling Dr. Sharma down with him just as the first gunshot shattered the silence. "Stay down and don't move," Liam whispered to the terrified doctor, his voice carrying an authority that Dr. Sharma had never heard from the quiet cleaner. "They're professionals. They know exactly what they're doing." Through the glass doors of the emergency department, Liam could see muzzle flashes strobing in the darkness of the main lobby. The fake paramedics had shed their medical disguises and were now moving through the hospital with military precision, their weapons sweeping in coordinated patterns that spoke of extensive tactical training. Liam counted at least 7 operatives, possibly more. They wore black tactical gear and moved with the fluid coordination of a unit that had worked together before. This wasn't a random attack or a desperate robbery gone wrong. This was a professional operation with specific objectives. "Liam?" Sharma whispered, her voice shaking. "What's happening? Who are these people?" "People who shouldn't be here," Liam replied, his eyes tracking the movements of the operatives through the red-tinted darkness. "And they're looking for someone specific." The wounded soldier from earlier had been right. They had followed him here. But Liam was beginning to suspect that he hadn't been the primary target. He had been bait, designed to draw someone else into the open, someone who had been invisible for 9 years, but whose skills would be unmistakable once revealed. One of the operatives approached the nurse's station, his weapon raised and ready. Liam could see his face clearly now, young, maybe late 20s, with the cold eyes of someone who had killed before and would kill again without hesitation. He was scanning the area methodically, looking for targets or threats. Liam made a split-second decision that would change everything. As the operative rounded the corner of the nurse's station, he moved with lightning speed, grabbing a medical crash cart and shoving it directly into his path. The operative stumbled momentarily off balance, and Liam used that instant to disarm him with a move that was pure special forces, a precise strike to his wrist that caused him to drop his weapon, followed by a chokehold that left him unconscious in less than 10 seconds. Dr. Sharma stared in shock as Liam quickly searched the unconscious operative, removing his radio, backup weapon, and tactical gear with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. "My God," Dr. Sharma breathed. "Who are you really?" "I'm someone trying to keep you alive," Liam replied, checking the operative's radio for intelligence. The chatter he heard confirmed his worst fears. This was a multi-team operation with specific objectives and extraction plans. "Target confirmed in the building," a voice crackled through the radio. "Sentinel is active. Repeat, Sentinel is active." Liam's blood went cold. They knew his call sign. They knew exactly who they were hunting. He grabbed Dr. Sharma by the arm and pulled her toward the medical supply room. "We need to get the patients and staff to safety. How many people are in the department right now?" 8 patients, 6 staff members," Dr. Sharma replied automatically, her medical training helping her function despite the terror. "Liam, I don't understand what's happening." "I'll explain later. Right now, we need to evacuate everyone to the most secure area of the hospital. Where's the safest place?" Dr. Sharma thought quickly. "The surgical suite on the 3rd floor. It's reinforced, has its own security systems, and there's only one way in." "Good. We're going to move everyone there, but we need to do it without being detected." Liam checked the unconscious operative's weapon, a military-grade assault rifle with modifications that weren't available to civilians. "How well do you know the hospital's layout? Service corridors, maintenance passages, ways to move people without using the main hallways?" Dr. Sharma nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "There's a freight elevator that connects to the service corridors. It goes directly to the surgical floor." Liam smiled grimly. "Perfect. Here's what we're going to do." Over the next 20 minutes, Liam orchestrated an evacuation that would have impressed his old Special Forces instructors. Using Dr. Sharma's knowledge of the hospital and his own tactical expertise, they moved the patients and staff through a maze of service corridors and maintenance passages, avoiding the operatives who were systematically searching the main areas of the hospital. The elderly woman with stroke symptoms was transported on a gurney, with Liam and a nurse working together to keep her vital signs stable during the movement. The teenage boy with a broken leg helped support another patient who was too weak to walk alone. Dr. Sharma led the group, using her medical authority to keep everyone calm and focused. But as they reached the freight elevator, Liam heard something that made his stomach drop: the distinctive sound of helicopters approaching the hospital. He grabbed the radio he had taken from the unconscious operative and listened to the tactical chatter. "Overwatch is in position," a voice reported. "All exits are covered. No one gets out until the primary objective is achieved." "Copy that," came the response. "Continue sweep of floors 1 through 5. Target is contained, but not secured." Liam realized that the situation had just become exponentially more dangerous. This wasn't just a hit squad. It was a full-scale military operation with air support and perimeter control. Someone had committed serious resources to finding him, which meant that whatever he knew or represented was worth killing dozens of innocent people to obtain. As the freight elevator rose toward the surgical floor, Liam made a decision that went against every instinct that had kept him alive for the past 9 years. Instead of continuing to hide, instead of trying to escape, he was going to fight back. Too many innocent people were in danger, and he was the only one with the skills to protect them. "Dr. Sharma," he said quietly as the elevator climbed, "once we get everyone secured, I need you to do exactly what I tell you. Can you handle that?" The doctor looked at him with a mixture of fear and determination. "Liam, whoever you really are, these people came here because of you, didn't they?" Liam nodded. "Yes, and I'm going to make sure they regret it." Desi. The elevator reached the 3rd floor, and Liam began the process of transforming from invisible cleaner to the warrior he had once been. The hospital had become a battlefield, and Sentinel was about to remind everyone why that call sign had once struck fear into the hearts of America's enemies. But first, he had to make sure that the innocent people under his protection would survive what was coming next. The surgical suite on the 3rd floor of St. Jude's Hospital had been designed as a sterile sanctuary where life and death decisions were made with precision and skill. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose, as a fortress where a former special operations medic would make his last stand against an enemy that had hunted him across 9 years and half a continent. Liam moved through the surgical suite with the confidence of someone who belonged there, quickly assessing the space for defensive advantages. The reinforced doors could be secured from the inside. The surgical instruments could serve as weapons if necessary. Most importantly, the suite had its own communication system that bypassed the hospital's main network. "Everyone stay calm and quiet," Liam announced to the group of patients and staff he had evacuated. "We're going to be here for a while, but you're safe as long as you follow my instructions." Dr. Sharma pulled Liam aside, her voice urgent but controlled. "I need answers right now. Those men downstairs, they're not random criminals. They knew your name, your call sign, and you handled that operative like you'd done it 1,000 times before." Liam looked at the doctor for a long moment, weighing how much truth he could reveal without putting everyone in greater danger. "My real name is David Thorne. 9 years ago, I was a special operations medic with a highly classified unit. My call sign was Sentinel. Officially, I died in a drone strike during a training exercise. Unofficially, I was marked for elimination because I knew too much about operations that were supposed to stay buried." Dr. Sharma processed this information with the same analytical precision she brought to medical diagnosis. "And now they found you. Not just found me. They've committed serious resources to eliminating me. Military contractors, air support, perimeter control. This isn't about revenge or tying up loose ends. This is about something bigger." Before Dr. Sharma could respond, the surgical suite's communication system crackled to life. A voice that Liam recognized with a chill of dread filled the room. "David Thorne, call sign Sentinel. This is General Victor Sterling. I know you can hear me." Liam's hands clenched into fists. Sterling, the officer who had betrayed Operation Shadowfall, who had sold out his team for career advancement and classified information, the man he had thought was dead. "You've caused me considerable inconvenience over the years," Sterling continued, his voice carrying the smooth confidence of someone who believed he held all the advantages. "But tonight that ends. You have something I need, and I have something you care about: innocent lives." Liam moved to the communication panel and keyed the microphone. "Sterling, I should have known you were too much of a coward to die with the rest of the team you betrayed. Ah, there's the thorn, I remember, always so direct, so moral. It was that inflexibility that made you a liability then, and it's what's going to get you killed now. What do you want?" "You know what I want. The files from Operation Shadowfall, the evidence you collected before everything went sideways. I know you didn't die in that drone strike. You're too stubborn to die that easily, and I know you kept insurance documentation that could implicate certain individuals and activities that were necessary for national security." Liam felt a cold realization settle over him. The files, encrypted drives containing evidence of Sterling's betrayal, records of illegal operations, financial transactions that prove the scope of the corruption within their command structure. He had hidden them years ago as insurance, never imagining they would become the focus of a full-scale military operation. "I don't have any files," he lied smoothly. Sterling's laughter echoed through the surgical suite. "Thorne, we both know that's not true. Sergeant Maya Singh was quite informative before she died. She told us about your insurance policy, about the dead man's switch you set up to release everything if something happened to you." Liam's world tilted. Maya was dead, his last link to his former life. The only person who knew he was alive had been murdered by the same man who had destroyed his team 9 years ago. "When?" he asked quietly. "4 days ago. She lasted longer than expected. Commandos are tough that way, but eventually everyone breaks. She told us about your little hideout, about the hospital where you've been playing cleaner, about the encrypted files you've been keeping as insurance." Dr. Sharma watched Liam's face transform, seeing something cold and dangerous replace the controlled calm that had characterized his actions so far. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was personal. "Here's my offer," Sterling continued. "You give me the location of those files and I'll make sure the hospital staff and patients survive this encounter. You try to be a hero and I'll turn this place into a war zone. My men have already secured the building. There's no escape, no rescue coming. Just you, me, and a choice." Liam looked around the surgical suite at the faces of the people he had sworn to protect. Dr. Sharma, whose only crime had been working the night shift. The elderly woman with stroke symptoms who reminded him of his grandmother. The teenage boy with a broken leg who couldn't be more than 16. "I need time to think," he said into the microphone. "You have 10 minutes. After that, I start killing hostages." The communication went dead, leaving the surgical suite in tense silence. Liam stood motionless for a moment, his mind racing through tactical options and strategic possibilities. Everyone in the room was looking at him, waiting for him to somehow solve an impossible situation. Dr. Sharma approached him cautiously. "Liam, what are these files? What's so important that someone would do all this?" "Evidence of war crimes," Liam replied simply. "Proof that Sterling and others in our command structure were running illegal operations, selling weapons to enemies, getting American soldiers killed for profit. The files could bring down careers and administrations, maybe even prevent future operations like the one that killed my team." "And you've been keeping them secret for 9 years? As insurance?" "If Sterling or his people ever found me, the files would be automatically released to journalists and congressional oversight committees. It was supposed to keep me safe." Dr. Sharma nodded slowly. "But now he's calling your bluff." "No," Liam said. Moving to one of the surgical instrument trays and selecting a scalpel with practiced precision, he just made the mistake of thinking I was bluffing. He turned to face the group, and for the first time since the crisis began, he allowed them to see exactly who he really was. Not Liam O'Connell, the cleaner, but Sentinel, the soldier who had earned his call sign by never losing a patient, never leaving anyone behind, and never backing down from a fight. Dr. Sharma, I need you to prepare the surgical suite for emergency procedures. We're going to have casualties before this is over. What are you going to do? Liam checked the scalpel's edge with the automatic precision of someone who had used such instruments to save lives and, when necessary, to take them. I'm going to remind General Sterling why they called me Sentinel, and why that was the last name his enemies ever heard. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The 10 minutes that Sterling had given him felt both eternal and instantaneous. Liam used every second to transform the surgical suite into something that would have made his old Special Forces instructors proud. He moved with a quiet intensity, his eyes scanning the room, cataloging every piece of equipment that could be used to their advantage. He directed the nurses to gather essential medical supplies, turning the sterile environment into a makeshift triage station. To Dr. Sharma, he spoke in clipped, decisive tones, assigning tasks with the authority of a seasoned commander. Sterilize everything you can, prepare for multiple trauma injuries, and doctor, stay close. He examined the surgical lights, noting their adjustability. He checked the locking mechanisms on the doors, ensuring they were secure. His mind raced, calculating angles, potential entry points, and lines of sight. The cleaner's facade had completely vanished, replaced by the focused, lethal efficiency of Sentinel. He was no longer just trying to survive, he was preparing to defend. The weight of responsibility for the lives in that room settled upon him, a familiar burden he had carried before, but one that felt heavier now, surrounded by innocence. The hum of the approaching helicopters grew louder, a stark reminder of the imminent danger. Liam took a deep breath, the metallic scent of the sterile air filling his lungs. He felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, a cold, clear focus that pushed away all doubt. The 10 minutes were up. He was ready. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.